Okay. All right. So with that, welcome everybody. We're excited to have the September 29th board meeting. And we'll begin this meeting. It's 9:04. And with that, I will look to you, Executive Director Ross, to take roll call.
Thank you. President Haley.
Here.
Vice President Hagerman.
Here.
Superintendent Horn. Member Catanese.
Here.
Dr. Clay.
Here.
Dr. Kaur.
Here.
Dr. Cruz Rivera is not with us today. Dr. Hightower.
Here.
Member Kravickas.
Here.
Dr. Webke.
Here.
President Haley, you have a quorum.
Outstanding. Well, great. Well, just really quick, we're really excited for all the different individuals. We're going to be recognizing some amazing younger and slightly older students today, and some incredible educators. And we have some exciting agenda items today that will sort of set the path for the rest of this 2025. So with that, that's the end of my comments. I would love to send it over to Superintendent Horn.
Thank you. Today we're going to honor some outstanding math and science teachers. And in preparation for that, I wore my Pythagoras tie. And if anybody ever needs a formula, it's full of formulas. Each year, the President of the United States recognizes outstanding mathematics and science teachers by bestowing upon them the Presidential Awards for Excellence in Mathematics and Science. These awards demonstrate the value and appreciation the nation has for teachers. Those who are selected as the awardees for this honor are a premier group of highly qualified teachers who have both deep content knowledge of the subjects they teach and the ability to motivate and enable students to be successful in these content areas. Collectively, they reflect the expertise and dedication of the nation's teaching corps, and they demonstrate the positive impact of excellent teachers on student achievement. So we're going to recognize 5 state finalists, 2 math finalists, and 3 science finalists. And the first one that we're recognizing worked for the Department of Education Chief Deputy when she was a principal about 30 years ago, Margaret Garcia Dugan. So I will announce her name and then I'll ask Margaret to say a few words about her. This is Kim Thomas, is an Arizona secondary math state specialist finalist. She is from Moon Valley High School in the Glendale Union High School District, where Margaret was a principal. So Margaret, would you say a few words about Kim Thomas?
Good morning, Good morning, State Board, President Kaylee, and members of the board. It gives me great honor to recognize Kim Thomas. Just give you a little bit of a background how Kim and I met. I was getting ready to launch an outcome-based mastery learning model at Glendale High School. In Glendale, of the 9 schools in the Glendale Union High School District, had the lowest socioeconomics population. But I knew that kids could learn if I had the right teachers. And Kim was one of those. The superintendent, Dr. Jerry George, said, what would you need in order to incorporate this mastery learning outcome-based model? And I said, I need 4 additional math teachers. And he goes, you got it. So he had a lot of faith in me. I had a lot of faith in the teachers. Kim came in, and she was an exemplary teacher. She was so exemplary, she became my math department chair. And now she's at Moon Valley High School, but she is still doing a job there. I think you're teaching calculus and upper division math, but it really is very emotional for me. 30 years ago, I hired her, and I think we both made each other great. Thank you.
You want us in front or over here? Okay.
Do you want us to stand up or no?
Yes, you.
Squeeze in. To like shake them out. Congratulations. Congratulations, fellow math teacher. Thank you. So great.
Next in math, we have Liliana Munoz, who is from Choya High School in the Tucson Unified School District.
Just keep all their tears in. Yeah. Oh, congratulations, Leah. Congratulations. Thank you so much.
Moving on to science, we have Michelle Landreville. She's an Arizona Secondary Science State finalist from Paradise Valley High School. I had served 24 years on the school board there, actually, in the Paradise Valley Unified High School District.
Congratulations. Yeah. Oh, great. Congratulations. Thank you so much. Oh, cool.
Were you there when I was there?
No.
No.
They're
Okay.
12 years. Congratulations. It's great.
Let's see.
You forgot Lisa Scott.
Next, we have Cynthia Lopez. She's an Arizona Secondary Science State finalist from Desert View High School in the Sunnyside Unified School District.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Great overview. Thank you so much.
The final finalist award goes to Lisa Scott. She's an Arizona Secondary Science State finalist from Esmond Station K-8 school in the Vail School District.
Very.
That's all I have.
More set.
Huh?
Another set of people.
Did I miss somebody?
Oh, right. And then also these. One second. Okay, once.
Okay. Presidential awardees received a $10,000 award from the National Science Foundation. Awardees are also join an active network of outstanding educators from throughout the nation and are often asked to serve in advisory roles locally and nationally. I think that does it.
We have these right here.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Okay. So we have some other math awards. Congratulations to Ariel Beggs, I get it. Ariel Beggs, the 2021 Presidential Math Awardee, Stephanie Shamey, the 2022. Should we do them all together or one at a time? Okay. Stephanie Shamey, the 2022 Presidential Math Awardee. And Christy Peterson, the 2023 Presidential Math Awardee.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Congratulations.
So loving that. So you got your thing, you have your award. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Okay. Nice to meet you.
And-
Congratulations.
And finally, we have some science awardees from prior years. Jill Christman, the 2021 Presidential Science Awardee. Amber Cordova, the 2022 Presidential Science Awardee. And Santa Cruza, the 2023 Presidential Science Awardee.
Amazing. Fabulous. Thank you guys so much. Congratulations, ladies. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Wonderful job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great job.
So well deserved. Thank you.
Now that completes my report.
Love it. Okay, well, that's awesome. Congratulations to all of our educators in math and science. We really need you. You play a critical role, and so glad that you could be recognized for your hard work. With that, I think we then go to Executive Director Ross for your report. And that was amazing, but this part is also amazing. So with that, Executive Director Ross.
President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Great teachers lead to great kiddos. We've got two great kiddos to honor with us today as State Board Students of the Month. Up first is Anthony Gomez. He is a second grade student at Hartford Sylvia Encinas Elementary School in Chandler Unified. He was nominated by his teacher, Mr. Delara, who's here with him today. He is the leader of PAC, practicing responsibly, acting respectfully, choosing kindness, and keeping safe, and models those values for his peers. Mr. Delara said that Anthony demonstrates responsibility for his learning, encourages his classmates, and is a role model in the school community. So Anthony, come on up. So you'll just speak in here and kind of just say who you are, where you go to school, and what you like about your school. Does that sound good? Okay, go ahead. Your name, school. Okay.
My name is Anthony Mateo Gomez Cruz. I am in second grade. I am 7 years old. The name of my school is Hartford Sylvia Encinas Elementary. I like my friends, principal, Mr. Kim, specials, and the playground because my friends are nice to me. The principal because she is nice to everybody. Mr. Kim because he is always great to everybody. And the playground because it has lots of things to play with, and special because it is fun. when I grow up, I want to be a policeman because I want to keep out robbers and bad guys.
So on the complete other end of the spectrum, we have another student with us, another awesome kid. Bree Blair is a 12th grade student at Xavier College Prep. Bree was nominated by the school counselor, Kelly Borquette. Kelly said that Bree is an exceptional leader, change maker, and advocate for civic engagement. Bree is the founder and president of HerGov, a United Nations partner NGO focused on empowering teen girls. Bree manages upwards of $10,000 in grant funding for HerGov and was selected for the Georgetown University's prestigious leadership initiatives, prison reform internship working on reentry solutions for formerly incarcerated individuals. Bree, come on up.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. My name is Bree Blair, and I'm a current senior at Xavier College Prep in Phoenix. I've lived in Arizona my whole life, and I consider myself very lucky to have been able to receive scholarships to get private education since I was very young. I live in Goodyear, but I drive out an hour each day, each way, to attend Xavier. I love the community that surrounds me at Xavier. Being at an all-girls school gives me the access to a supportive, hardworking sisterhood that will follow me throughout my life. That empowerment is what has allowed me to accomplish so much outside of the classroom. Outside of school, my passions lie in civic engagement. Since 2023, I've been a youth political organizer, knocking doors, doing policy research, and organizing events for candidates across the state. In total, I spent upwards of 500 hours doing political organizing during my sophomore year alone. During this time, I also realized disparities in women's representation in government. Currently, only roughly 1/4 of U.S. senators are women, only 29% of representatives are women, there are only 12 female governors, and there are only 3 states in which women outnumber the amount of men in local government. This inspired me to start my own nonprofit organization, HerGov. HerGov is a nonpartisan organization dedicated to expanding opportunities for civic education and civic engagement for teenage girls across the world. Our programs include a biannual online fellowship program, an online magazine, and social media campaigns aimed to educate young women about women in government. Since our founding, we have secured over $10,000 in grant funding, gotten over 21,000 interactions across social media, built a team of 30 young women from 4 different countries, received 501c3 tax exempt status, gotten recognition as a 2024 United Nations partner organization, and even gotten recognition from the Biden-Harris administration. In 2024, I was also recognized as a national finalist for the White House Gender Policy Council's Girls Leading Change Award. This was a selective honor for young women creating change in their communities, and I was one of 20 out of over 700 applicants from across the nation to become a finalist. I was also selected for this award, not just because of my political advocacy outside of school, but also my work with HerGov. In all, I believe that my community at Xavier has helped me grow the most. Without my sisterhood at Xavier, I would have never been able to be bold or confident enough to pursue my extracurricular passions at such ferocity. Looking ahead, I hope to get a Questbridge Match Scholarship to an Ivy League school, study political science and sociology in undergrad, and later complete a master's degree in public policy at Georgetown. Afterwards, I plan to return to Arizona and run for local office, and hopefully one day represent our state in the US Senate. This recognition means a lot to me because it affirms the work that I've done and the risks that I've taken to follow my passions. And these were worthwhile not just for myself, but for the communities I serve. I'm deeply grateful to my teachers, mentors, and peers at Xavier and my family. I'd especially like to shout out my teachers, Miss Richter, Miss Bay, Mrs. Donaldson, Dr. Zuba, Mr. Hendrickson, Mr. Mirando, Mr. DeStefano, and Miss Burkle, and my two best friends by Cal Padilla Garcia and Sylvie Rapp for always pushing me to be my best self. Thank you so much for your time and honoring me with this award. I am truly proud to be a student in Arizona, and I look forward to continuing to give back to the state that raised me. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much to the teachers and the students that were with us today. And the future is bright thanks to each of you. So thank you so much. With now, we're going to shift to item 2. This is the call to the public. This is a time for the public to comment on items listed in the consent agenda or the general session. Members of the public may also choose to address topics that are not on today's agenda. Please note that Arizona law prohibits board from discussing or taking legal action on matters raised during the call to the public that are not on the agenda for the current meeting. Each speaker has 2 minutes to address the board during this 1-hour period allocated for public comment conversation. Furthermore, speakers are not allowed to transfer their speaking time to another individual, and personal attacks are not welcome. Finally, with that, Deputy Director Duplanty, have we received any requests to speak?
President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, yes, we have. First up will be Brandy Blackford, followed by Angela Faber, followed by Janet Walk. Brandy? Brandy's not here, so we'll go with Angela Faber. No Angela. Janet Walk. And she'll be followed by Amanda Steele and Patrick Mannion online. So Janet Walk.
Okay, thank you. I'm here to ask the Department and State Board of Education for clear guidance for schools and parents regarding graduation options for students with disabilities. I'm an involved mom, actively participating in every IEP meeting, and I honestly have no idea where I went wrong. The school said that their hands were tied and that the Department of Education required my daughter to graduate simply because she had the credits that were gifted to her in classes where she did not even begin to understand the curriculum. Something here is wrong. One of the most common and enduring challenges faced by students with Down syndrome is developmental delay. The IDEA was established with this understanding in mind to ensure that students with disabilities are given the opportunity to learn and thrive and not forced to meet four-year graduation requirements. My clear expectation was that my daughter would have additional time and support to master key skills. Instead, the school's primary goal was to push her towards graduation before she achieved the necessary academic and social skills for a bright future. College and post-secondary programs are not bound by the IDEA and lack the support structures that special ed students need after high school. Graduating students before they are truly ready denies them appropriate education and a fair shot at success. My daughter deserves an education that recognizes her potential, provides meaningful growth opportunities, and respects her right to develop at her own pace. Schools must not feel compelled to push any student, especially a student with disabilities, to graduate prematurely. Every child's education should be tailored to meet their needs, not sacrificed for convenience or rigid standards. Rushing a student's education because of budget issues or administrative shortcuts is indefensible. My daughter and the countless students like her have the right to learn, grow, and become all they can be. Anything less is a failure and a tragedy for those relying on you to do what is right on their behalf. Thank you.
Thank you.
President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Next up is Amanda Steele, followed by Patrick Mannion, followed by Lynn Fox Embry. Amanda?
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this important issue forward. I want to acknowledge the positive steps already taken, including requiring schools to notify families about graduation decisions a year in advance and ensuring that students with disabilities are not penalized in accountability measures if they graduate in extended cohorts. However, there remains a significant gap. When a student with disabilities meets graduation requirements and is issued a diploma, they lose their entitlement to special education under IDEA, even if their IEP still calls for transition services or related supports. While schools may choose to provide services after graduation, those services are unfunded and students are left without legal protections they need. Families should not be forced to choose between a diploma and the services that prepare their child for adult life. The board has the opportunity to close this gap by clarifying rulemaking so that students may defer receipt of their diploma and remain eligible for IEP-driven services through the age of 22. This change aligns with federal guidance and assures Arizona students are given the time and support they need to achieve meaningful post-secondary outcomes. I urge you to move this issue forward. Thank you for your time today.
President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Next up is Patrick Mannion, followed by Lynn Fox Embry, followed by Aizen Embry. Patrick?
Hey, good morning, everybody. Very briefly, I would encourage all of the board members on their computers to check out their own agenda today. First up, they should look at Agenda 6.A, the voluntary surrenders. Read the actual passages. Most districts, even when it seems that the behavior hasn't yet risen to the level of criminality, they tended to err on the side of student welfare and actually called the police to investigate, with the notable exceptions of certain districts, including Higley and Peoria, and of course, as we always know, Chandler Unified School District. I'd like you to also take a look at Agenda 7.B.7 for Simon Ocampo. The board should be deeply concerned with the quality of leadership in the Chandler Unified School District, given the case of Mr. Ocampo. Despite repeated reports of alarming conduct, including unsafe behavior with students throwing a javelin at students, erratic and paranoid claims, failure to comply with directives, multiple arrests, the district's responses were largely reactive and incremental, allowing patterns of misconduct to persist. And the record reflects not only an individual's serious unprofessional behavior, but also troubling lapses in oversight. Sound familiar, gang? Accountability, timely intervention by district leadership is lacking. The safety and well-being of students, staff, and the broader school community requires a higher standard of vigilance and decisive action from those entrusted with supervising educators. And lastly, for Mr. Cada and Mr. Ross, don't trade strategic actions against public participation for state bar complaints. And thank you for your time.
President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Next up is Lynn Fox Embry, followed by Aizen Embry, followed by Rebecca Beebe. Lynn?
Thank you. Good morning, President Haley and Superintendent Horn and members of the board. As most of you know, I am an ESA parent of 3 students, 2 with disabilities and 1 not. Today I'm here because there's nothing on the agenda for us, but good news, in my opinion. I want to first thank Superintendent Horn and Mr. Ward, if he was here, for giving me the opportunity to meet with you guys and talk about what we can do as a community to work to make ESA better this year. So I do appreciate that, Superintendent. Also, the press has given us a lot of bad press recently. So as a parent who uses the program, I want to say I am appalled with some of the things I've seen in the press, and those families do need to be taken to the AG's office, and that money needs to be come back to the state of Arizona. But there's a lot of us out here that use the funds the proper way. I am a parent who not only have used my money for private education. I've used it for micro schools. I use it to pay tutors. I use it to buy curriculum, standard curriculum, and things outside of the box. I use it to buy technology. I use it to hone in on my children's needs to make sure that they get the best education that I can give them. So I want to say, because of this program, I've been able to do that for all of my students, not just my special needs kid, but my student who's going to be speaking next about what he was able to do with his ESA fund. But I do want to say there's still some problems in the system. Class Wallet is being a nightmare right now. Parents are having a hard time buying simple things through the Amazon site on Class Wallet. So I'm asking the department to please look at that and see if we can make that easier for families, because even with the debit card, you can't buy things. And again, the whole purpose of ESA is for us to be able to use our funds to help our children. And when things are blocked, we get answers like, oh, well, we don't know. Well, we don't know is not a good answer. So we need to have answers to why things are even blocked on the ESA Class Wallet third-party site. Again, thank you for your time, and my son Eisen will be speaking next.
President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Next up is Eisen Embry, followed by Rebecca Beebe.
Good morning, President Haley, Superintendent Horn, and members of the board. My name is Eisen Embry. I'm a 14-year-old homeschool student. I would like to start by thanking you for supporting the ESA program, because with ESA, I was able to do stuff that kids in schools may not have been able to do. One of those is building my first PC. I built it after I researched for about a year. I picked like all the parts. I chose which parts were better than the ones like from last year's or before that, and the prices. One of my friends came over and helped me build that because he knew how to build it. So at first it was a little overwhelming, but I eventually figured out where the parts go, and now I can later on upgrade it because I built it. Now, since ESA let me build something like a computer, I have the ability to use it for school, design, coding. I play with my friends on it. And sorry. I'm trying to remember. It taught me how to be more patient and how to like problem solve when the part didn't fit right. We had to like take stuff out, put it in, and then put them back because we did a step wrong. It taught me how to organize stuff. So we put like parts in one spot with all the screws that needed to go back in. And yeah, I would like to thank you for having me and talking today.
President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Last up is Rebecca Beebe.
Hi, good morning, President Haley, Superintendent Horn, and members of the board. My name is Rebecca Beebe, and I'm here on behalf of the Arizona School Administrators to speak to item D regarding special education and graduation. First, there's been significant stakeholder engagement and conversation on this issue between parents, the field, the department, and the State Board of Ed. And we're very grateful for the time spent so far trying to run the issue to ground and the work that has gone into this agenda item, including the work on the accountability issues, the graduation notification, and the transition services starting earlier. Arizona has many school choice options, but the majority of students with special education needs are in public schools. As we all know, public schools operate under federal laws that are meant to protect children with disabilities, like the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, which requires that special education students be educated in the least restrictive environment. So really the default starting point is typically the general ed classroom. With that said, we definitely hear and understand the concerns of the parents, that are coming here in the call to the public and that have been involved in the advocacy on this issue. So we look forward to the presentation from ADE staff today and to the discussion. We definitely support more flexibility for students who do need more time to stay enrolled past 4 years without penalty, either to the student or to the school that's educating them. So long as that flexibility is not too broad and not prone to unintended consequences, and we do believe the intended target of a potential rule change should remain students with significant intellectual disabilities or those needing those extra transition services. There are still some issues to work out. Importantly, includes the issue of funding. And perhaps there's an opportunity for us to come together to find common ground on a solution moving forward. Perhaps that solution includes legislative action, especially in regards to that ADM issue. So we're happy to come to the table and potentially help continue facilitating conversations so we can maybe come to that point of common understanding to move forward. And thank you so much for your time and everything all of you do for Arizona kids.
President Haley, Superintendent Horn, and members of the board, that concludes this call to the public.
Well, thank you so much. We are now going to move to item 3, which is the consent agenda. Is there an item or items from the consent agenda that a board member would like to pull and discuss? All right, seeing that there are none, I would like to vote on them in its entirety. So I'd like to have a motion to approve items 3A through 3F. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Dr. Webke, and then do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Dr. Hightower, second. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries. So with that, we will move on to the general session, and we'll begin with item 4A. So Executive Director Ross.
President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. It is September, so it is A through F school letter grade release season. Each year at the board, Sean Smith, Chief Accountability Officer from ADE, comes to present to the board. He will be presenting some options for the board to consider for cut scores. Just as a reminder, the board will hear the presentation this month, but will not vote until next month. There's a couple reasons for that. One, the school data are embargoed until the board votes. And so the board vote happening closer to the letter grade release is very helpful for schools. And then most importantly, by presenting this month but voting next month, it gives schools what we call a buffer month to calculate their letter grades. They have an idea of what cut scores may be. They have their data already. And then if they see an issue, they can reach out to the department to have that issue addressed ahead of time, because the goal for all of us is as clean a letter grade release as possible the first time. So with us today again, Sean Smith, Chief Accountability Officer. Sean?
Thank you. Superintendent Horn, President Haley, members of the board, thank you for having me today. As Executive Director Ross mentioned, this is one of the things we do annually, and I think as we look through the slides today, what we're going to see is that it's pretty similar. It's going to look very similar to what we saw last year. So a lot of stability is kind of what we're seeing in this analysis. So we'll go to the first slide, please, or does it work with the clicker for me? We're accountability. We got to be weird with our slideshows. So the first set of slides, we'll take a look here, and it's going to show us a distribution for each of the models. So again, we have 3 models, one for elementary schools, one for high schools, and then one for alternative high schools. And what we'll see is there's going to be on the left-hand side, that's what happened in 2024. In the middle is what happens if we use the same cuts that we used as last year. And then the right hand would be what would happen if we recalibrated using a standard deviation. So here's the 912 model. Would it be possible to go back one to the K8? Or if it's, no, sorry. So the first one we see is K8. This is the majority of schools. And what we see if we look at those two, the black on the left and the orange in the middle, they're almost identical in terms of the number of schools in each category, in each letter grade category. We can see on the right hand what would happen, and that's going to be typical. What you'll notice if we reset the scores using standard deviations across all models, what we'd expect to see is that things are going to push back towards the middle, right? That's been a general trend over the last 3 or 4 years, is we've seen average scores increasing and the variability amongst scores decreasing. So to my eyes, that looks like people are understanding the models, they're responding to, they're reaching for the targets that we've set for them. So again, we see higher scores and less variability. What we would capture anytime if we look at that standard deviation approach is we kind of say that's the new norm now. We're shifting things back over to where the range, again, less variability means the range between each letter grade is going to be smaller, and the threshold for really the cut line for a B is the average, so that's going to move higher. And so then if our crazy slideshow will cooperate, we'll go to the next one. High school, we see a similar pattern, largely similar numbers to what we see last year. We see a movement and a slight increase there with 13 more A's and fewer C's. And again, standard deviation on the very right resets that and pushes things back kind of towards that middle B and C range. And then finally, we'll look at alternative. In alternative, we see a similar pattern. There's an interesting thing here where we get, if we were to reset with the standard deviation cuts, we'd end up with more A's. It would move things back towards the middle again. But in each of the technical advisory committee meetings, the feeling was that the representation here, what the prior year cuts, if we adopt those same cuts, was the best representation of what was happening in schools and what the data was showing. So let me pause for questions there briefly, and then we'll kind of look at the individual cut scores, and then we'll look at some of the changes in where schools have gone. So any questions at this point? No?
President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Just to clarify a couple of things, one of which I meant to say at the beginning of the item, we are currently holding study sessions to learn more about the A through F system, each study session focused on specific indicators. The work happening in those study sessions in no way impacts this letter grade release. Those study sessions are all forward-looking. This is for last year's letter grade. So I just wanted to say that. And then, Sean, I apologize if you said this already, but can you explain historically when standard deviation cut score setting has been used?
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Great question. So typically we've used the standard deviation when an input to the system has changed. So initially in 2017, when the letter grades were first established, the board looked at the data. They used an average and a standard deviation to try and see, okay, where's the cut line for what's normally happening, and then a standard deviation representing something far above the typical, right? And then the only other time we've reset them was for high schools with the adoption of the ACT test. So when the assessment changed, that data distribution changed, the scores changed. And again, the board looked at that to see where a score is at, what represents a high water difference for an A level. I'm so sorry. We can go to the PDF too if it's easier. What we're seeing now is we saw just a slide of the cut scores that they were for last year. Nothing too big there. We like to include these ones that we affectionately call spaghetti graphs because they look like a bunch of spaghetti got thrown on the floor. But the takeaway here is that this was important when Toby put these initially together. At first, when we looked at them, the numbers were so similar from year to year. I think with the K-8, they were almost exactly the same. We were like, did anything change? Did we run the right year? And so what we see here is the change in individual schools and the number of schools that are moving between grades. So while the overall landscape and the number of A's, B's, C's, D's, and F's has stayed very similar, you can see here where, for example, if you look on the left where the 2024 grades were, you can see that band on the left that moves from blue and B up to an A, and then a similar band that moves from an A to a B. So what we can see is that while the overall models and cut scores stay pretty stable, there are individual school differences where schools are making progress or where they're slowing down. And so each of these, and we can kind of quickly go through, we see a similar pattern for high schools, and again, more stability. There's fewer schools there. And then same thing on alternative, where we see a little bit of movement between grade bands. And again, I'll pause for any questions on that. Yeah. Seeing none, that's about the analysis that we've done. And
President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Sean, just one more question, a little finer grain. You're presenting on the model writ large, which is wonderful. Can you just speak to MSAA and growth quickly?
Oh, thank you. Yes. One of the things that we want to build in the next version of the business rules is a model where we can include MSAA or growth for students who are participating in the MSAA assessment. We've done some work on that to see what that would look like. We would not expect it to show drastic changes to the model writ large, but it's a step that we can take that can bring students in to include, to give schools back information about the students they're serving. And again, I keep citing the resource that says the best and most effective accountability systems are the ones that effectively communicate. And so again, bringing those students in that schools serve, we can find a way to put those scores in that will let teachers and educators learn about the results of all their students. So that's something we're excited to kind of bring into the model in the next year. Anything else? All right.
Just a quick question, if you wouldn't mind, Sean, we would possibly use standard deviation again after we contract out and select a new assessment. Is that correct?
Thank you, President Haley. Yes, that's very likely. If we see any shifts in kind of with the performance and stuff, then we'd want to look at the distribution and say, what's the data really telling us? So, yeah.
Any other questions? Member Kervikis.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Sean. And I appreciate Sean for reminding us about the growth issue. It's something I've been talking about for years, and only 1% of the kids take the MSAA. My daughter's one of them. And I appreciate the fact that it's probably not going to make a significant impact because of the numbers, but it makes a huge statement that we're including all kids. So thank you very much for your work on that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Any other questions? Members joining us virtually? Okay. Dr. Hightower.
Thank you, Sean, so much for your work. I guess the question would be, as we move forward with a new state standardized assessment and potentially new CAT scores, if there's any way that, and I know you're doing a lot of work, that we can bring this information prior to releasing any of the grades. So in this case, we'd be looking for the 24-25 school year, and the students took the assessment in April. So it's difficult to look at it knowing that the schools have been really prescribed in a certain methodology, and then looking at potential changes and stuff like that.
Member Hightower, thank you. That's an excellent question. And I think we're aligned with that. We've worked really hard to try and give schools as much of a heads up as possible. And just as one example, we've moved our process where we can publish data into ADE Connect with the initial release of the static file, so schools can start to see some of those calculations. And so I think that's something that we could build into our conversations as well, is just start to say, hey, here's the mean and standard deviation of the data as we're seeing it so far. Obviously, we always, when we talk with the field, we always let them know, all of this is pending board approval, and it's going to go through robust discussions with technical advisory committees and the board as well. But that might be something we could do, just like, hey, here's the look at what it would look like as kind of a what if analysis.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions for members of the board? Member Kavickas.
Thank you. I just want to say, because I've said it every time we've been doing this, I appreciate the amount of work that goes into this because I can't even fathom it. But especially as we're thinking about component scoring and a new assessment, some really big changes coming, I really want to get to a place where we're saying this is what an A school looks like. Not what does a model look like that gives us a certain amount of A schools or the amount of A and B schools. We'd love every school to be an AB, right? I mean, that's truly our goal. But that, I think we're asking the wrong question. So I just want to preface my vote saying that's what I'll be voting about, is going to a more criterion referenced model so we know what an A school really looks like. Thank you.
Any other questions? Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sean. We'll see you next month.
Thanks very much.
Great. Continuing on assessments, we are going to move to item 4B. With that, I will give it to you, Executive Director Ross.
President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, there's get a little procedural explanation with this item. So this is going to be a presentation and discussion about the board voting to possibly open the request for proposals for the multi-state alternate assessment, MSAA. So the format of the item may take a couple of different forms. So the board is going to receive a presentation momentarily from Bethany Spangenberg, who's the Deputy Associate Superintendent of Assessment from ADE. Upon the completion of Bethany's presentation, if the board has further questions, then the board will need to make a motion to move into executive session. Because this is a statewide contract and it's not the RFP cannot be released until the board votes on it, so it is not public data. So any discussion of the RFP would happen in executive session, discussion only, and then the board would exit executive session, come out and vote on the dais. So that is one possibility. If the board does not have any questions after Bethany's presentation, it also has the ability to vote at that time as well. So just a quick explanation that this item might take a little bit of a different form, but let's bring Bethany up to present.
Thank you. Good morning, President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. It is assessment RFP season, so I'm here again. This one is to share information on the MSA RFP. So a little bit of background, the multi-state alternate assessment is our alternate assessment for students with the most significant cognitive disabilities. IEP teams annually make a decision for students on which assessment they're going to take. And as mentioned before, this is about 1% of our students statewide. The assessment is administered in English language arts and mathematics in grades 3 through 8 and 11, and in science in grades 5, 8, and 11. And this is a consortium, so there are 11 participating partners, and those are listed for you. So the contract for MSAA, we are in our final extension that would go through December of 2026. Arizona holds the master contract as the fiscal agent, so that is why I am before you today. And then we do need to get all of our partners to approve the RFP before we would be able to post it. And then the partners also sign a cooperative agreement so that they can participate in this assessment. The format is a little bit different. So we're looking at the timelines. We hope that all partners will have approval this fall. Within the next couple of months, we'd be able to post and evaluate over the winter. Hopefully coming back in front of you in February to get approval for the recommendation and make sure that we are able to announce the awarded contract so that we have time to implement. So this does give us a little bit of extra leeway with our contract not ending formally until December 2026. But we would be able to start some of the planning and that work to implement as soon as June or anytime in between June and December. All right, we do have several alternate assessment options. We have been using MSAA for about 10 years now. It does have a stage adaptive design, so that's something that really helps to meet the needs of students with significant cognitive disabilities. MSA is a little bit different. The partners actually own the assessment. So any partners that are with that cooperative agreement own those items. So we have more flexibility with what we can do and we're controlling who's actually administering the assessment. Arizona has been very proud that we have created our own assessments, that our educators are involved in the process, and this is one that MSA also meets. We have fully met peer review requirements for ELA and math. We are in the process of submitting for science. That assessment was developed a lot later than the ELA and math assessment, so that is just an ongoing process yet. But we do have the confidence that this assessment does meet peer review. Another option is DLM, another great alternate assessment. Some of the things that maybe have prevented us from really exploring that is that they do offer items that are below grade level and do not contribute toward proficiency for students. So a lot of the teachers would be spending their instructional time and their assessment time on below grade level standards. Another consideration for DLM is that it's owned by the vendor. Actually, it is put out by the University of Kansas. So we wouldn't really have much control or say over what goes into the items or any kind of changes that we want to make with that. We always have the option to create our own assessment with or without a vendor. We did that back in the days of AIMS-A, and the technical quality of an assessment like that tends to be very low. It's just a bunch of people at the agency trying to do what we can to offer an assessment for students. That was without a vendor. If we did bring a vendor in, that would be a lot more expensive for the small population of students that it serves. So just looking at fiscal responsibility, that option is typically not used by most states. It's just not a financial investment that states want to make. So partnership usually is a better option. All right, so content of the RFP, typical of what we would expect. We're asking for the same stage adaptive design that we have. It, of course, includes the minimum standard technology and security requirements that are required for all assessments. We have the possibility of using the same platform. Our platform that we're using is open source. So any vendor that would bid would be able to use that same platform. Our teachers wouldn't have to learn something new. They could possibly continue with the same process that we had before. We're asking for the same test window. Usually it's the middle of March to the end of April. Where I haven't requested any changes in the blueprint, so we are expecting the same blueprint. Item development and embedded field test items, that is something the current contract had put on hold for a couple of years now. So being able to bring that back into our contract, making sure that we have new items available. Reporting at the student, school, district, and state level. And then also this year, we are including an alternate interim assessment. We have started the process of being able to develop an alternate interim. That is something that we're really excited about because at the state level here in Arizona, we do not require an interim or a benchmark assessment, but a lot of our districts do, or districts and charters do have required assessments and they don't have an alternate available. So for us to partner with our other MSA within the consortium to be able to develop an alternate interim assessment is definitely a benefit to our schools. All right, any questions?
Member Kavickas.
I am so excited about the interim assessment. It's quite frankly long overdue, so I'm really excited about that. What's the timeline?
To implement? Thank you. Great question. We are in the very early stages of gathering educator feedback. We were hoping to have a pilot available fall of 2026. But again, this depends a lot on the timelines of the RFP to make sure that we're prepared, depending on how much leeway we have to be able to get that ready in that amount of timeline.
Can you talk through with me a stage adaptive test? I'm pretty sure I want to know, but I don't want to make any assumptions.
Yes, thank you. Great question. The assessment for alternate assessment is very different than what we typically see from our general assessment. Our items are developed at 3 different levels. The level depends on the scaffolding that's available. So our level 1 items are the very, very most basic items with the most amount of support. And then we have level 2, which is a little bit less support, and level 3, which is even less support. So the students take about half of the assessment, and they receive questions on levels 1, 2, and 3. And based on those responses, they are routed into stage 2A, stage 2B, or stage 2C. And those 2A would have more of those level 1 questions. Stage 2B would have more of those level 2 questions. So it's really tailored to meet students, the needs of students with significant cognitive disabilities. And the unique part about the alternate assessment is that it's alternate academic achievement. So back in the days when this program was being set up, achievement was defined specifically for this population of students. So the most support that students can get, and they're routed into that first stage 2A, they can still meet proficiency based on those achievement standards.
I'm really glad I asked that question because I don't think I got it perfectly. When I thought of stage adaptive, I guess I'm thinking more about that's what it helps me understand the below proficiency items distinction on the DLM.
Yes.
So stage adaptive in this is more about the levels of support rather than grade level.
Correct. Correct.
Is there, and I'm not suggesting that we move to DLM at all. I'm actually really proud that we're still with MSAA. I was part of that original crew and just really proud of what we've done. But if you have below proficiency items, doesn't that give you a bigger reporting bandwidth in terms of where students really are?
It could potentially give teachers more instructional information, but the purpose of a summative assessment is to be able to show where the student is in relation to grade level standards. So I think there's different ways that we can build in those instructional supports with our instructional resources without compromising what we're doing for the assessment.
I get that. It's just sometimes hard. Like even if we look at 3rd grade reading gen ed population, it's hard to say, we know how many kids are not reading at 3rd grade level. We don't know if they're at the 2nd grade level or at the 1st grade level or the kindergarten level. And so, but that's, I guess, a whole different debate for another day. I'm looking at have you sought any feedback from stakeholders? Like the Special Education Advisory Panel, Down Syndrome Network. I don't know if this is the right stage in which to do it, like an RFP creation, the ARC, some of these groups where it's really our kids that are taking the test primarily.
Member Krivakis, yes. We have not included a lot of those external stakeholders because we don't have a lot of control over the content. So it has to be approved by every single partner. So we have to be very careful with who we're inviting, because if Arizona requires something that other states don't agree with, then we're going to have an issue and not be able to do the RFP at all.
Okay, I appreciate that. But perhaps even in terms of how the reports come to parents, getting that kind of feedback I think on items like on issues like that might be helpful. I don't know. Can we do that differently than other states?
Yeah, there's definitely a possibility that we could do our own reporting or some other task in there. That's not the details of the RFP. So that's definitely something we can talk about at any time, bring that up and see. And typically if Arizona is interested in doing something for our students, other partners are also interested in going through that process.
But considering how many of the students are in Arizona from that table, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you very much for your work.
Just I have a point of clarification. Thank you so much for your presentation. I guess currently with MSAA, the reporting does it address some of the questions that Member Krivakis has raised, or are we asking, are what you are asking is something new? Because we currently have a contract with MSAA, correct?
Correct.
And so what does that reporting look like based on the issues that you've just raised?
Thank you. I guess I'll follow up on my own question. I was referring specifically to the parent reports, the reports that come to the house. I'm not saying they're bad or wrong. I just think there's always room to continually iterate and get feedback from stakeholders on how to improve that. I just got mine.
Yes, absolutely.
Last
So
month.
I think we had gone through the process maybe around 2018 or 2019. So it's been a while. So it's definitely something that we could look at again. Last time we went through that process, we did bring in stakeholder feedback from parents, community. We went to CAP and presented and got some feedback as well. So definitely an opportunity to be able to look at that report again. We could look at all of our reports and see if they're really supporting our teachers and our educators.
Thank you. I think we're constantly trying to figure out how to best communicate this data to parents. So
Yes.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Do we have other questions from members of the board about this presentation? Okay. With that, do members have questions specifically about the RFP? In which case, if that's the case, then we would need to go into executive session. So do members have any questions about the RFP? No? Okay. Well, if that's the case, then I might proceed forward to make a motion, have someone make a motion to make sure I say this correctly. So forgive me. That the board approve the RFP for the MSAA as presented. Do I have a motion? Member Krivix? Great. And then I'll have a second is Dr. Clay. So with that, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing that there are none, the motion carries. So thank you so much. Okay, we're moving right along. So we'll now move to item 4C. This is a presentation and discussion of the implementation of the board adopted recommendations of the State Board Special Education Evaluation Subcommittee. With that, Executive Director Ross.
President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. As you all know, the board convened a special education evaluation subcommittee in 2024. Upon the completion of that subcommittee's work, it put forward a number of recommendations, several of which were adopted by the board. 14 of those recommendations sort of lived with the Arizona Department of Education for implementation. So we have asked that team to come forward today to report on the status of the implementation of those recommendations. Just as a reminder, you all were given, and it's in the agenda as well, a document that lists the 14 recommendations and had notes from ADE on the current status. And we asked them to do that so they could come in and spotlight certain recommendations instead of necessarily just counting down through all 14. So with us today is Alyssa Trollinger. She's the Deputy Associate Superintendent, the Exceptional Student Services team. Alyssa?
Thank you, Dr. Ross. Can you all hear me? I am much taller than the microphone. President Haley, Superintendent Horn, who stepped away, and members of the board. My name is Alyssa Trollinger, and I'm the Deputy Associate Superintendent of Exceptional Student Services at the Arizona Department of Education. And I'm here today to talk about the implementation highlights of the board-approved recommendations of the subcommittee that met. Oh, it's right here. Awesome. Just as a reminder, as Director Ross just said, in spring of 2024, the State Board convened the Special Education Evaluation Subcommittee to review the relevant federal, state regulations, rules, and laws regarding special education evaluations. In August of 2024, the State Board adopted the subcommittee's recommendations. As Executive Director Ross said, there were 14 assigned to ADE, so we had quite a lot of work cut out for us to start working on these. And this presentation will highlight some of the things that we've implemented from September of 2024 to now, so approximately a year. And as he also referenced, this is intended to accompany the larger document where the activities and strategies were more explicitly outlined. So the topics of the recommendation, even though there were 14 of them, were kind of condensed into the following areas: prior written notice, consent, timelines, independent educational evaluations, evaluation procedures, and eligibility criteria. all relevant to special education evaluation. And before I get into the highlights, I thought it might be useful to take a few minutes to talk about the implementation steps, because it was quite a lot of work to take a look at everything and organize and put some implementation steps together. So the first thing we had to do was review all of the recommendations. That was a very active subcommittee with a lot of different ideas and activities that were suggested. And so we took a look at all of the recordings, some of the meetings we had also participated in, and we assigned a lead to the recommendations so that we could work on it comprehensively. And then we organized the content areas. And then the next step was to assess. We needed to take a look at all of the guidance, the technical assistance, the trainings, all of the things that we had that would be relevant to the topic areas of the recommendations, and look for places where there were gaps or where there were opportunities, where we knew that there was some low-hanging fruit that we could take advantage of in order to implement some of the strategies. Then we prioritized, and in order to do that, we had to determine which of the topics were more feasible to implement than others more quickly. In some places, we had trainings that were already in development, so it would be easy to roll those in, or guidance documents that were in the process of being revised. And you know, from that point, it was fairly easy to develop some implementation steps for a number of the recommendations. And then we started implementing, which involved revising, creating new guidance and tools, and getting the information out to the field. And feel free to stop if you have questions. Okay, so the first implementation highlight that I wanted to provide has to do with two recommendations regarding prior written notice. The recommendations say that we should be providing guidance that prior written notice can be issued during meetings where evaluation consent is obtained, and that the prior written notice may have dual uses during reevaluations. You may be wondering what a prior written notice is. A prior written notice is a key legal document that needs to be provided to parents before something happens in the evaluation process and also in the IEP process. It needs to be provided before initiating or changing a child's special education identification, their evaluation, placement, or provision of special education services. And really, the prior written notice helps explain a public school's decision, any of the data used to support it, and other options considered and rejected, and provides parents with information needed to understand their rights and to respond to the proposed changes. So for this series, or this set of recommendations, I divided up the implementation highlights into two main areas. One has to do with guidance that was produced, and the other has to do with training and technical assistance activities. The department already had a prior written notice guidance document that is part of our larger set of resource documents from the Arizona Technical Assistance System collection. We call that the ASTAS documents. The field is very aware about these. We had a prior written notice document that was already developed, and we took a look at it, revised it, incorporated the recommendations in language, and published it in January of 2025. That was kind of a low-hanging fruit because we already had that document and it was easy to change. In July of 2025, we also developed a new tool that we're hoping would be kind of a shorthand document for professionals to use when they're in an IEP meeting making decisions with students during the evaluation process as well. And this is a notes grid or guide. It's intended to provide guiding questions for professionals as they walk through the prior written notice. Guiding questions include: what is the purpose? What does the student data look like? Has the student made progress? Are there any changes that are needed to programming or eligibility? Are there concerns or unmet needs? And what types of resources are available? And we did this because we understand that IEP teams and our professionals really sometimes struggle to understand how to fill out a prior written notice, and it's very important that they include the right information. The tool also includes a reminder of all of the components that are required in federal and state regulations, statute, and rules. And then finally, we undertake a review of our programmatic monitoring forms every year. It happens in the spring. And although we already had prior written notice incorporated into those forms, we took a look at all of our forms and made sure that prior written notice was accurately and adequately represented throughout the programmatic monitoring process. And those were rolled out in the spring to public schools. The second section has to do with training and technical assistance. And it was really nice to take a look at the regional trainings that we already had scheduled and easy to incorporate a prior written notice segment into those trainings. And I say easy, and my staff is probably cringing. Easy. But we know that it is an area where we need to provide professional learning for our special education folks working with our kids. And so we set up regional trainings for both this year and last year, and we incorporated prior written notice into those. And we trained over 200 participants across the trainings that have occurred thus far in 100 LEAs. So that was a pretty far reach considering we've only been able to work with these recommendations over this past year. And then we always, every day, provide technical assistance to public school professionals and parents who call into the department or who email questions or whom we interact with during in-person trainings. All right, and I will move to the next set of recommendations, which is a bit more broad. And these recommendations had to do with the provision of guidance in a variety of areas related to the special education evaluation process. And you can see that's recommendations 1, 2, 5, 7, 12, and 13, which really covered a lot of components. We also have an evaluation as TAS document, one of those key critical documents that we make available in our collection. And we are undergoing a comprehensive revision to this guidance document. And all of those recommendations will be things that we incorporate into this revision. As part of the revision, and this is another recommendation that was made, the document has been reviewed with an expert special education legal consultant that the department contracts with. And that consultant has helped us ensure that the evaluation guidance document is aligned with state board rules as well as federal statute and regs. We have also rolled out some drafts of this to key stakeholders in the field, the School Psychologists Association in Arizona, and some special education administrators to get some feedback. And it really does take some time to put together a comprehensive revision because we want to make sure that not only is the information accurate, but it's easy to read and implement in the field. And then finally, we are developing a new resource that will accompany the evaluation as TAS document that will contain sample templates for documenting special education eligibility decisions. And what that will look like is for each eligibility category, there will be kind of a template that guides IEP teams on how to ensure that all of the information is included and how to make decisions. These templates were something that were included in a prior version of the evaluation as TAS document, but they were removed in part because many public schools use an electronic IEP tool and they adopted and incorporated the verbiage into their IEP tools. So we didn't necessarily think it needed to be provided, but understanding that there were many questions about the evaluation process, we decided that we would pull those back out, take another look, and try and get them out to the field for additional information. And then I know that these were questions that parents and families of children with disabilities also had. So this would be a useful tool for parents and families to have. All right, and into the final set of recommendations. It was recommended that the department should collaborate with Encircle Families to develop and share guidance to parents on dispute resolution options available from the IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, including access to mediation. And this is a recommendation for which we've done a lot of work over the last year. You may or may not be aware that Encircle Families used to be Raising Special Kids. It is the parent training and information center that has been awarded the contract to provide support to parents and families about special education from the Office of Special Education Programs at the US DOE. And we work very closely with Encircle Families. We have quite an active and productive, positive relationship. One of the things that we do is ask Encircle Families to share dispute resolution resources that are available on their website, which they do for us. We also present to Encircle Families. Our dispute resolution staff schedule regular trainings with Encircle Family staff to ensure that they are aware and understand early resolution options and the full suite of dispute resolution options so that they can increase their capacity to support parents' needs as they request assistance from that organization. And then finally, we have piloted something over the last several years where we present information through a Facebook Live forum, which is kind of an interesting way to get information out to parents and families, one that allows them to have a bit more interaction, where our own staff will present, facilitated by Encircle Families, and parents are able to engage and ask questions through the Facebook platform. And then finally, if you'll indulge a picture of Chris, Tiffany, and I, the executive director of Encircle Families, we have been on a roadshow over the last year talking about our productive partnership. We have been asked on a national level to present to other SEAs and parent training and information centers across the United States to talk about our collaboration, because not every state education agency and parent training and information center have a collaborative relationship. So we're quite proud of the work that we do together, which is much broader than this particular recommendation. It includes work in parent and school communication, special education implementation, and dispute resolution strategies, and is recognized as a national model. In 2025, we presented at 3 national conferences, one at the National Parent Center Conference, another at the US DOE Office of Special Education Programs Conference, and then finally we'll be presenting in October at the National Association of State Directors of Special Education. The National Parent Center Conference was also co-presented with the U.S. Department of Education funded Technical Assistance Center for Dispute Resolution, which is titled the Center for Appropriate Dispute Resolution in Special Education. So this is certainly a recommendation that we've been very active in and that we were excited to share with you. Oh, perfect timing. Time's up. Look at that. This concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Do we have questions from members of the board? Member Kravickas.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Alyssa, for all that work. I can't even imagine how much even just aggregating and sorting, sifting and sorting through all that must have been. First, my question is actually to staff. Sean, did all the subcommittee members receive a copy of her slides and the responses?
President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, Member Kravickas, that's a post-meeting action.
Okay.
So yeah, that'll be done after the meeting.
Okay, great, because I'd obviously love to hear some of their feedback as well. There were, I don't want to belabor it, but there were some really pointed questions from Disability Rights Arizona in the public comments. I don't know if you got a copy of those.
I did.
And maybe we can talk about them after, and just because I don't want to reiterate them here, but I'd like to get some of those addressed. Really excited about new TAS documents, even I know what those are. What will the process be to solicit public feedback on those?
So normally what we do is roll it out to key stakeholder groups. We share updates with professional organizations like the School Psychologist Organization, with leadership from special education administrator groups like AZCASE and AZCEC. And we can roll out highlights also using the Special Education Advisory Panel.
Thank you. I'd love to get that out to some of the parent attorneys and advocates as well to get feedback. On the spreadsheet, that's what I'm looking for. Number 14 was blank, probably, quite frankly, the biggest recommendation. So I get it, but I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on that one. Because I'm also sorry to interrupt, but the new templates, I honestly didn't even catch that in the slides. So I'm really excited when you elaborated. I was like, what? I didn't see that. Because if you and I are thinking the same thing, I didn't see them in the original, the one that's long gone. It could somewhat address what we were trying to get at number 14.
Exactly. We have not been able to get to 14, frankly, because it's only been a year and we've been trying to roll all of this in. However, the first thing that we wanted to talk about, or the first thing we really wanted to do was, as you said, approach other professional organizations with the templates and get feedback. Because often what is in the law, and if that's explicitly what we write, isn't necessarily what's understood well by professionals. So we want to ensure that it's readable and usable. But we would roll that out to professional organizations and again, the Special Education Advisory Panel. And certainly that recommendation is more broad than just those groups. So it would be, as you discussed, to a broader section of special education stakeholders. So that would be the plan over the next year.
Thank you. We spent a lot of time talking about that, the subcommittee. It's probably one of the most frequent calls we get on the advocacy side is I don't understand why my kid doesn't get an IEP. He got an autism evaluation from the doctor. He doesn't get the IEP. There's really a strong disconnect. So what we were really trying to bring with something like templates, because we looked at other states, and I'm happy to meet with you again offline and share with you the states that I found, is it's just transparency and consistency.
Sure.
Because right now, quite frankly, and I know you know this, it can vary from district to district, sometimes even within a school, within a district, based on the school psych. But it's really frustrating for parents just to not know what the criteria are for each of those. But again, I know for all 13, that's a big lift. Some are probably a lot easier. Autism and SLD, probably the two most gnarly. And I guess that's a professional term. But any way that we can be of assistance at Champions for Kids, we would love to help with that. Because again, that's just a top call that we get from parents. So thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did have one other thing with Chairman's permission. When the new guidance documents are put out, can we get red line versions? So we can see, because it's really hard to not have to do a side by side, especially the evaluation one I know is a big one, to try to see what the changes are.
Member Kravickas, we can do our best to do a red line version. There have been so many changes that it might be difficult to follow. It's a pretty big document, but I'll take a look and see what we can do.
It's just really hard from the outside to weigh in on. This is true for all government agencies. If there's not a red line version, it's just hard to know what the changes are.
I think that what we could do regardless is put together an annotated list of changes that could accompany that so that it would make it more transparent.
Okay. And just for the purposes of the rest of the board, there's a specific rule, it's R72401E7, that has the current criteria that are in State Board rule. But that particular rule hasn't been touched in decades. And so that was part of our recommendation. So I was wondering if you could elaborate that, is kind of reevaluating that. I mean, autism's not even a listed disability under that. So I'm like, that's really old. So have you guys taken a look at that and seen how we might need to, whatever you put in these templates may need to be crosswalked over into the rule?
What we have done thus far is ensure that everything in the templates is aligned with the federal requirements and the state statute and board rule. That's really been our first level of review, and we haven't done anything else beyond that. So the answer is yes and no. We've started that process, but we haven't necessarily finished. We're going to be really focused on ensuring that what we put together is consistent with law, regulations, and rule, and that it is usable from the field.
I appreciate that. In this particular instance, I think regulation needs to be updated probably based on what you guys end up putting together. So I'll be interested in seeing that. My other question is regarding the preschool issue, which we spent a lot of time on there. We didn't talk about it a lot here, but for the board, I'll tell you that and please correct me if I don't say this right, under federal law, school districts have to evaluate any preschool age students for all 13 disabilities listed in federal law. The Arizona funding system lists 5 different ones. So there's a big disconnect there. And I believe, did we vote on that last year?
President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, Member Kravickas, the board did not vote to adopt those recommendations. They, in fact, it was feedback from you and other members to table those and discuss them further.
Okay. Because there's definitely confusion in the field and definitely legislative outreach that needs to happen for funding purposes, but.
President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, Member Kravickas, I would highlight that during that special education evaluation subcommittee, I think it was Chris Brown, there was a presenter who spoke to the change they had made in preschool, where now preschools can list.
Yes.
Maybe if Alyssa can address that, I think was a big part of why those recommendations didn't move forward in the same way. So yeah, Alyssa, do you mind speaking to that?
Director Ross, I think what you're referring to is the changes that were made in the AZ Ed system in order to enable reporting in all of the applicable categories. For some time, there had been integrity rules that prevented the submission of that data, and that was all changed so that regardless of whether it's fundable, we can ensure that eligibility categories are documented for preschool students.
Yeah,
And
I think
that is something that we have discussed over the last year. We've touched it in presentations, but we understand it's an ongoing area of concern and will continue to address it through professional learning and technical assistance.
Thank you. I do remember that presentation. I think that's why we said we need guidance, because there's a lot of confusion.
Right, exactly.
I could have swore we had something on the legislative agenda or something on this issue, because it's a huge fiscal impact to ultimately incorporate all 13.
President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, Member Kravickas, there were 2 legislative recommendations, one of which was related to this issue, but again, in the meeting in which the board voted to adopt recommendations, that recommendation was tabled.
Thank you.
Are there other members that would like to make comments? Dr. Hightower.
Thank you so much for the incredible work you and the team have done to go through the entire process to implement the board adopted recommendations. Heavy lift. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
And also the question would be for any recommendations that are still to be worked through, like what would be the process for those?
Thank you, Dr. Hightower. The process would be for us to take a look at our work over the course of the year, to work with the lead who has been established to help direct the work of the strategies and implementation process, and develop milestones that will allow us to get this going and not, I don't want to say finish, because I feel like professional learning and technical assistance is always continuous improvement. We're always taking in data, seeing where people have questions and concerns, and then rolling out improved guidance. Really, that's an ongoing process. But for the items where we still have work to do or that we haven't been able to fully address, we'll set milestones over the next school year. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions from members of the board? I'm not sure if any of us joining online have specific questions. No? Okay. Any other questions? Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your presentation. We really appreciate this update. We know we tasked you all with quite a long list, but really appreciate this update and look forward to continuing to work with you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, let's see. Do folks need to take a quick break? Let's take a 10-minute break. It is well, how about 12 minutes? So it's like a hard number. So it's to 10 50. Yeah, I was like, now I can't do the math. check online with our colleagues that are joining us virtually. Thank you. I believe we have a quorum. We're missing one person, but I think we have a quorum, right?
We do, President Haley.
Okay, well, let's continue this conversation. Our next item is item 4D. This is a presentation and discussion of federal regulations, including Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, state law, and guidance related to high school graduation for students with disability. And so with that, Executive Director Ross.
President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. We had some folks from Call to the Public last month and this month to speak to this issue. And so we asked the department to come and present. And so with us today is Colette Chapman from ADE. Colette?
Ross? Is it morning? Yes. Good morning, President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Yes, some of the board members submitted questions to ADE and then asked that the department present on the questions. So I would like to get totally through the presentation and then we can spend the last 1 minute on questions. Okay.
I think we'll have a lot more questions in just a minute.
Okay. Okay, so the board's first question is what guidance is available to schools related to the State Board of Education rule change that notifies parents of students with disabilities about graduation? So if you remember, in October of 2024, the State Board of Education adopted a rule to address parent concerns about the lack of awareness surrounding graduation decisions made by the school. So this new rule requires the IEP team to add the anticipated date of graduation to, well, the estimated graduation date on the IEP, and then at least 1 year prior to the student's anticipated rate, notify the parent of the graduation date. So this change was just a positive step forward in promoting collaboration around graduation decisions. ADE Special Education is especially committed to ensuring that schools implement this rule effectively. So the question was, what resources and guidance are out there? So keeping in mind that this rule was adopted October of 2024. We did a memorandum, sent it out to the field with the special education listserv and blog. And this explained the rule change and it outlined expectation for districts, the charters, and the Department of Education. The special education listserv and blog shared the memo and provided ongoing updates to educators and stakeholders. So this all happened in November of 2024. The training, we have professional check-ins sessions with school psychologists and special education administration, regional and virtual trainings, and those are statewide. And of course, the IDEA conference, also a statewide conference where we trained on this rule. We do have additional training scheduled for this fall and winter. And did I say we have a dedicated web page just specifically for this rule? Communication with the families. Information and links are available on the statewide parent training and information website. That's in Circle Families. And then we have Encircle family staff participate in statewide trainings, and they're better to assist in providing information to parents. So, whoa, that was fast. Let's go back. Okay, that went really fast. I'll have to remember that. I just want to acknowledge the stellar work that the exceptional student services did in getting the word out, and we continue to do so. They're a busy group over there. Okay. The second question from the board. In addition to information provided by the ADE Accountability and Research section, does ADE Special Education provide any guidance on the A through F school accountability system and impact related to students with disabilities and graduation? And I think this change was adopted, I think, in June of 2024. So the accountability system has been revised so that it does not penalize schools for students with disabilities who graduate in extended cohorts beyond the 4-year cohort. Acknowledging students with disabilities may require more time to graduate. So we're working with Sean, the ADE Chief Accountability Officer, to ensure consistency of message with the A through F school accountability system guidance in both trainings and documents. So this will be put in the graduation FAQ or the graduation ASTES document. Third question, are students allowed to attend high school through age 22 to receive transition services, even if they have completed their academic graduation requirements? The answer is yes, if the school chooses to continue to support students beyond graduation. But it's important to note that students are no longer entitled to special education and related services. They will not receive a free appropriate public education under IDEA. Legal protections available for students with disabilities and their parents under federal and state law would no longer apply. And continued services provided after graduation are not eligible for state or federal funding, i.e. average daily membership or federal IDEA funds. I think one thing to keep in mind is that ESS focus is on ensuring IEPs meet federal and state guidelines. We do not evaluate public school graduation decisions for compliance. I think people have said that they're getting direction from ADE to graduate within 4 years. We have not provided that guidance. Fourth question, is an individualized education program team allowed to map out a course of study that is combination of graduation courses and transition services past 4 years, if that is what is most appropriate for a student with a disability? And the answer is yes. And the students would be funded because they haven't graduated. So they would receive ADM and IDEA funds. This is what we've trained on for 2 decades. Our message has remained consistent. The schools will not be dinged on this if students go beyond the cohort of 4 years. Are schools able to offer standalone transition courses and or contract with standalone transition providers? The answer is yes. Public schools can offer standalone courses and contract with authorized special education service providers to support the needs of students with disabilities. We have to make sure that accurate reporting and adherence to special education statute are still important, such as data reporting and funding impact. I've been asked, how does this look? And the standalone courses and the contract with the special education providers, it will look different in every district, in every charter, and for sure with every student. So it's very hard to describe. I do have someone here that can answer questions though. So if you have any questions related to this slide, I have my muscle sitting back here. Okay. So any questions? Those were the questions again provided by the board. And so I'd be happy to take any other questions.
I have some questions. I'm sure other board members do as well. Going back to slide 7 and 8, it says, are students allowed to attend high school through age 22 to receive transition services, even if they have completed their academic graduation requirements? You said yes, but then you also said students are no longer entitled to special education services under FAPE or under IDEA. It's my understanding under Part B of IDEA that funding is available for individuals to, I think, age 21, particularly if they are already enrolled at the age of 19. So that transition has begun, that funding title or Part B funding is available. So to say that it is not available, I think might be a misunderstanding of federal law. So could you explain a little bit to me why you would say that funding is not available, that federal funding is not available for students that are older that need additional transitional services, particularly if it's in the IEP as planned for students and their families?
Okay, thank you for the question, President Haley. There are 2 times when a student becomes no longer eligible for FAPE. 1 is when they graduate. 2 is if they age out. So there's federal law that says once a student has graduated with a regular high school diploma, that they are no longer entitled to FAPE.
Right, but I guess my question is that this question is what the discussion that we've been having are students being prematurely forced to graduate when perhaps they need additional services. We heard earlier today from several parents that said they were given credit for courses that those kids did not their children did not actually take, and therefore were awarded a diploma. I would say that particularly when we supported guidance this last year and that the department has been charged with executing, or maybe earlier this year, that, beginning as early, I think, as age 14, ideally freshman year, you are building out an IEP so that students and their families can plan not only the courses that they are taking, but also to be prepared so that when they do transition out of high school into the real world, that they have the skills and the abilities to be able to do so. So I guess my question is that we heard earlier that some families are finding out their kids are being graduated. They didn't take the classes. They're not ready for the real world. My reading of federal IDEA funding would say if they are not ready to transition out of school, Part B funding is available to be used to support those students. Am I not reading it correctly?
Well, let me answer, then see if I've answered your question. So, Ed, tell me the question one more time. Oh, no, I got it. So, if parents have issues with their credits being given and they're inappropriate, whatever, that's a matter for the local governing board of their school because they are responsible for credits. If parents feel that their special education rights or the child's special education rights have been violated, they can come to the department, file a state complaint or mediation or due process that we can look at to see if compensatory services may be ordered or needed. So that part would,
I guess my question was specifically related to slide 8, which was that the claim on this slide was that students are no longer entitled to special education services in FAPE and under IDEA. Legal protections available for students with disabilities or under federal and state law no longer apply. I get that if a student has already graduated, but I'm talking about students that are older, that are still in our schools. My understanding of IDEA Part B is that funds can be available and applied.
if they haven't graduated.
So I guess what I don't understand is that students can be forced into graduation and still receive services to transition out. And what you're saying is because the district made the decision to give a diploma, whether out of pressure from ADE or policies set by the local school district, that then if those students stay within the school to receive those transition services, they are ineligible for that funding. I guess my question is, should those students receive a diploma if they're not ready to enter the world? That's sort of my bigger question, in which case I would say the funding does apply and resources should be made available to support those students.
Thank you. And that would require a legislative fix, maybe for state funds, but it's pretty clear, I believe, in the federal guidance that once a student has graduated, there is no longer an entitlement to FAPE. Whether or not the district is graduating these students early, that is a matter for their local board. Okay.
Superintendent Horn.
Yes, if a school gives credit for a course that the student has not taken, that's fraudulent.
Yeah.
And so when there's fraud of that kind, it has to be corrected. But I think the presentation that we've heard assumes honest procedures. And that would require, if a student has the credits to graduate, that the student did take and pass the courses.
Dr. Webke.
So if I'm playing this out, if we need to have a graduation date or anticipated graduation date and a student is in high school, and the longer, the more they work with a student and they feel like they're not ready, it behooves them to not set them up for graduation in that 4 year, if that's just what I'm hearing. But I'm curious what that does to kind of the psyche of the student, just the whole picture. But I guess I'm just trying to figure out what's best for students. And it's if they need more transition services, I'm wondering how often districts or teachers or whomever is in charge of these decisions revisit IEPs to adjust the graduation date or the requirements just because, not adjust the graduation requirements, but adjust the date if that student isn't ready, and those aren't decisions anyone takes lightly, but I think that's a decision that parents and administrators and teachers should be involved in, and in many cases, the students as well. So I'm just curious if I'm understanding this, in terms of working this out.
In October, also, the rule that was passed in October also says that transition planning should take place by the end of the freshman year or 16, whatever comes first. So in that IEP team, that transition planning, that's where you can estimate like what may take the student longer. And you can, what are the barriers to the student and identify what may take longer and then roll it out from there. We did have 2,600 students return for 12th grade year last year. So it is being done.
Are there other questions?
Do you know
Dr.
what,
Hightower?
thank you so much, President Haley. Do you know what percentage that constitutes of the special education population, that 2,600?
I think, I believe it was 10%, or is it 1%? 10.
Madam Chairman, with your
No.
permission.
Member Kavickas?
And I only have 22 data, but in 22, we had 906 19-year-olds. So I have it more by age with disabilities statewide, 399 20-year-olds and only 231 21-year-olds. So it's a very small group. That's
Thank you.
statewide.
Thank you. And we can get that data later, so thank you.
I see Dr. Clay. Dr. Clay, do you have questions for Colette?
Dr. Clay, you're muted.
You're muted.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Okay, yes, I do have a question. In one of your answers, you said schools may choose to continue to support students beyond graduation. So my concern was they may choose. That's one thing I wanted to ask. And the other one is the may choose, is that in conjunction with the IEP that the team is allowed to map out? And I'm reading from another slide. It says, an IEP team is allowed to map out a course of study that is a combination of graduation courses and transition services past the 4 years. So are you saying that the school can choose, and the only way and the way that is reflected is through the IEP, or does the parent just continue to let the student go through school in expectation that they can stay? I'm just trying to get a clarification here. Am I confusing you with my question?
Thank you for the question, Dr. Clay. So remember, if a school chooses to continue to serve the child, whatever that looks like, there are still no entitlements to special education and a free appropriate public education because the student in this situation has graduated. So I don't know what it looks like. It was a question that was asked by the board. And yes, they can, if they choose to support the students beyond graduation, that's fine. Okay.
So,
Okay,
so
Dr.
I'm sorry.
Dr. Clay, if I could just help clarify, because I think you were asking where that choose comes in. And so Colette was saying the choose comes in for a student who has graduated but is continuing. Can you talk about how that there's not a choose if they haven't graduated and the IEP says
right.
Yeah, can you
right.
but can you clarify that?
Okay. So I will clarify that if a student has not graduated, they still receive a free appropriate public education. They enjoy all the legal protections available for them and their parents, and they continue to be funded with ADM and federal funds. That is if they have not graduated.
Okay, thank you. So if a student is in school and they have completed all course requirements, there is no more IEP after that. Because what I'm looking at or what I'm seeing is maybe a school, because parents are not getting the support that they need, maybe a school may say, hey, I'm going to let the student take all courses except one just to keep them in. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out a way that we can get this done where students will be supported and we don't have to do anything gray. I just want things to be clear and cut, and there's still a lot of gray. And I know, and I know that's why we're having the conversations.
I think Superintendent Horn had a follow-up question or clarification.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. So I think an important clarification because there's some misconceptions out there. The Department of Education has no interest in whether a school does or does not graduate a student. So we would never tell a school you cannot graduate the student. So we had a parent during the parent call to the public say that she was told by the principal that they had to let the student graduate because of pressure from the Department of Education. If the principal really told her that, which I don't know if it's true, but if the principal really told her that, then the principal was not telling the truth. And I want to be sure that everybody understands the Department of Education does not pressure the schools one way or another. It's up to we're a local control state. It's up to the districts to make those determinations. All that Colette is letting you know is if the school chooses to graduate the student, then they lose all these rights, including funding that we've been talking about. But we do not attempt to influence the schools one way or another. That would not be proper for us.
Thank you.
Dr. Clay, have you finished asking your questions?
Yes, thank you. I still have to, I'm getting it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Member Kavickas.
Thank you. Thank you, Colette. I do want to give the department a huge shout out for all the outreach on the new transition rule. I've seen it. I've seen the new website and it's really great. And I've got some good feedback from the public on that. And always a big thank you to Sean on the graduation rate work as well. Superintendent Horn, I agree with you. I don't think the department has that. What it keeps coming down to, and it was iterated in the comments that we all received from Disability Rights Arizona, is the definition of graduate. ADE's interpretation is if the student has completed the prereqs or the graduation requirements, they are considered a graduate. What others believe is that a graduate is a graduate when they've been issued a diploma by an LEA. Or I always joke in AZEDs, it's when their column turns to G, like literally when it says G. And that's where it becomes tricky. Because even the planning, and again, I think I even introduced the 14-year-old, the new transition planning rule, huge supporter, but things change as kids go on. So there's only a couple different ways to Member Clay's comment to do that, to spread it out. So you can either spread out your core courses over the years, which makes sense, except that they may change their mind junior year and say, you know what, I want to graduate next year, and now they don't have the courses. So I mean, that is a strategy, but I'm just saying it's not always going to work. The other one is to really withhold that credit, to which Member Clay just iterated, and I know it happens frequently. The other one is to fail students, which I've heard from parents that that's what they've chosen to do too, is to fail them so they have to retake a class. So that's when I say, what does it look like? Is it, what are those options? And again, to your point, thank you for asking that question. We are talking about a very, very small 1% of the group, kids with most significant disabilities like mine and like the mother that we heard from. So I can't stress that enough, but it's what does it look like? Because I believe a graduate is when they're issued a diploma, and the federal law says graduate with a diploma. But ADE's interpretation is that if you've taken all those classes, you've graduated, but you haven't until you've been given a diploma. And that's true of any student, regardless of whether or not they have a disability. So I think that's the issue that we keep coming back to, is we have to define what a graduate is. the graduation document has been taken down, which actually I think Alyssa alluded to in her comments as well. My question is it being rewritten and how you will solicit public feedback on that?
Sure. Thank you, Member Kravickas. The graduation ASTAS document is up, but we are revising another copy. So I want to make sure that graduation information for parents and practitioners are available. With regard to the graduation ASTAS document, we will be adding the rule. We will be adding the A through F accountability.
Good.
And we also work with Encircle families to get their feedback, school psychologists, school counselors, practitioners out in the field will, and we do have a legal advisor as well who looks at it to make sure that everything is aligned. So we do a really good job. And if somebody looks at the document and says, this doesn't make sense, can we redo it or reword it? We're happy to do that.
I appreciate that. It seems like it would be easier to get the feedback before it's public and then people have to come back and say, no, I don't like that.
Well,
So I don't know. what that
We do
process
get
would-
a lot of feedback prior to us.
I know there's a lot of
during the
private
process.
advocates and attorneys that would love to weigh in on that as well. And I want to apologize to anybody for my body language, but I am shivering. So I know I'm kind of like all hunched over, but I'm cold. So please don't misinterpret any body language right now. So back to and the reason I bring that up is because the old guidance, and I couldn't find it, so I don't quote me on it, but basically said that transition activities have to be integrated into coursework and not be standalone. I understand that that may be a best practice, and I think it probably is for like 98% of kids with disabilities, but not for everybody. And it's not in law. And the way that the old guidance was written, it sounded like that is law and enforceable, but it's not in the law. And it makes it really hard to design those activities. And the reason I bring that up is because your slide did say that you can do standalone or courses after. So again, that's my question, is how does that come back? So if you wanted to do a year at Project Search or a year at Project Focused down at U of A, it's a standalone year. It's been confused. The schools are under the interpretation that they can't do it after. Like you can't do all your academic coursework and then come back and do that, which has been the traditional way, and that's true nationally. I mean, nationally, most people just call them the 18 to 21 programs. I don't necessarily like that term. That's kind of what people call them. But I'm still kind of confused of whether or not that is an option and how it would look. Like what courses would students can take or how would they take them and then still be able to do that year-long standalone project. And I know we all got a letter from National Project Search in our comments. They are by far the best program in the country for kids with intellectual disabilities, have stellar employment results. They're in every state. I think there's like 500 sites. So Project Search is like the gold star, the gold model. I mean, if I was queen, everybody would take Project Search, but.
I'm going to have Linda Burrows answer that question.
President Haley, Superintendent Horn, Member Kravickas, thank you. That's a really good question. So it really comes down to what we have is that course catalog. And in Arizona, it's not like maybe other states where you can do coursework after you get graduation. It all has to be done prior to meeting those graduation requirements. So it would be something that we would need to add coursework within their selections that people can take that would put those students on the path towards whatever they choose. And again, that would be a local control decision. The district would be the one that would have to select those courses and have those courses available for students to then take that would prolong their graduation date past, say, the traditional 4-year graduation time.
Thank you. Hi, Linda. Are you thinking that those courses are like transition courses?
It just depends on what the courses are that are created, basically, that would be listed in that course catalog for LEAs to select from, and then put that as part of the course for each student to take that, whatever their year that next year would be, that would be determined by the previous year's IEP.
I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of confused, but that's okay. I think this is why we need guidance. But because I know some districts have chosen to now often transition courses.
Yes.
Which the dilemma, again, from a parent perspective, is they're electives. But that means that if your child has a disability, their electives have to be transition courses and not 3D art or, a CTE course or dance or these other things. So I'm not a big fan of that option because it doesn't really seem fair that their electives have to be transition courses, which are technically mandated under federal law. But going back to that project search, like the standalone year-long internship type program, which has the best evidence in terms of outcomes, how can that work for a student?
So how that would work is honestly, again, it's like Superintendent Horn said, it's a local control issue, and it's the districts that would select to make that either a graduation requirement or to make it an elective. ADE does not set that at all. In the course, and again, the state board is the one that sets those graduation requirements for what are the requirements, but LEAs can choose to have different graduation requirements. And that's where the state board sets that minimum. LEA set what may be extra on top of that. And that's where the LEA could choose a project or a course from the course catalog that would be, say, a year-long course that would include these kinds of standards and these kinds of academic and transitional requirements for those kids in that kind of category.
I think I see where you're going with that. It could be year long, but wouldn't they have to take it like in between, like let's say junior, senior year? Because they couldn't take it after a traditional senior year because they'd have the credits to graduate in theory.
Correct.
That's where, that's where I keep kind of coming back to this loop in my
Yeah,
head.
so if you think about it this way, right? So a student with special needs, right, is every year going to be evaluated during their IEP to determine how they've done for that year and then what's that best path going forward. And so at that meeting, that's when you can look at what's available course-wise, and the LEA can choose maybe different courses that it's like, all right, Linda's not really meeting where we want her to be. We think that maybe she needs to do this 1 year course with that projected path. So we're going to change her schedule, and that would be then next year's course. And then in the spring, maybe you're going to reevaluate that and say, wow, she really exceeded. Now we're going to put her back on this other path. So that way you have those options to insert maybe those kinds of transitional courses with academics and special needs, and then transition out of them. So that way you do have infinite possibilities. But again, that would be the LEA on that yearly basis at the IEP, having those conversations with the parents, looking at what courses they can set up for that student to make it be as successful, and whether they graduate in 4 years, 5 years, 7 years, right? That's really up to those decisions made on that yearly basis. And then the LEA selecting what courses they have and staffing then those courses for the students for the following year.
Well, to your earlier point, though, my understanding is that LEAs cannot have separate or different graduation requirements for students with disabilities. So that, I don't think that's an option. But I think, and again, I'll defer to, I mean, I'm not an educator, but I think the reason these, and I loosely call them 18 to 21 programs, including, the ones like Project Search, is because the kids are older and ready for them. At 16, 17, they're probably not ready for them. That's why they traditionally would go through 4 or 5 years of academic coursework and then do a standalone, internship, workplace learning, whatever term we want to use for that after, because it just makes sense from a developmental perspective.
Absolutely. And the graduation requirements, to your earlier point, they're not different. It's just, say, Linda needs 2 years to get to that same level as, say, a student in a gen ed class only takes a year to do. And so it's not that they have different graduation requirements. It's just the courses that they take to get to those graduation requirements would be modified or would have different to meet the needs of those students. But to have that after graduation program, due to state law, currently there's no funding for it. So it literally would be LEAs choosing, if the student has met those graduation requirements, the LEAs then don't have any funding to provide for that, ADM or federal funding for special needs. And so that's where it would need to be integrated into, say, those graduation requirements as the students work through that coursework. It would have to be integrated into that for them.
Well, this is very exciting. And, earlier before the meeting, we asked Superintendent Horn if we would be willing to just do guidance, ADE develop guidance with public feedback. Because I can tell you the schools don't know that they have all those options. So, I mean, that's all we've been asking for is the options, the guidance. I like to call them pathways, right? What does the pathway look like for my daughter? And I think the districts need to know what the sandbox looks like. But I do still think at some point we need to define when is a graduate, when are they considered a graduate? Because that is the big difference between whether or not FAPE still applies and whether funding still applies. So I still think that we need to have that conversation, but hopefully we can still agree to just do guidance with stakeholder feedback. And again, really more like guidance is like the TAS, I think like, legal interpretation, but really like sample transition plans, sample coursework. But again, to Superintendent Horn's point, which of course is very well taken, it's going to look very different in an urban TSW program than it will in Seligman or Graham. So really having that wide range. If you're in a district, there's only one kid with a significant disability, the options are going to look significantly different than they would in Glendale. But thank you.
Dr. Hightower. Thank you so much. I appreciate the dialogue because I think that guidance is going to be key. I don't see any school or local board not wanting to do what's best for the students. But, and should it really be a choice for schools because special education sadly is so woefully underfunded. So if they're giving a choice and there's challenges with funding or enrollment or agencies charging an arm and a leg for special education services, the decisions may be very different. So I think that guidance will be key.
Thank you so much. Any other questions from those that are joining us with Dr. Clay or Dr. Hagerman? No? Okay. So with that, I think, let me make sure, I don't think we're taking any actions. No. Well, thank you so much, Colette. We appreciate it. And thank you also, Linda, for your comments. Given that we appreciate that presentation, so we'll now move on to item 4E. This is an opportunity for Deputy Director DePlanty to provide us some insight on opening rulemaking procedures for AAC Article 7 adjudications and Article 13 conduct. So Deputy Director DePlanty.
Thank you, President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Just to give a few talking points on this rule draft proposal, this is substantive part of the proposed rule change is to focus on timely adjudications by allowing for default or summative action on cases where educators are non-responsive. By streamlining these paper cases, educators who want hearings will receive them in a more timely manner. At any time in this part of the process, educators headed for default action due to non-responsiveness may request a hearing and be afforded that opportunity. Other changes in this rule draft suggest clarifying language and technical changes to clarify language and processes to make it clear for educators. The proposed changes in this rule draft were crafted in collaboration with the Attorney General's office and with the goal of clarifying rule language and streamlining processes to allow for educator discipline hearings to be heard in a more timely manner. And with that, if the board staff stands ready to address any questions that you may have.
So with that, do we have anybody, do any members have any questions regarding item 4E? Seeing that there are no questions, I would love to have a motion that the board open rulemaking procedures for the Arizona Administrative Code, item R7-2-701, R7-2-703, R7-2-704, R7-2-705, R7-2-709, R7-2-712, and R7-2-1301 through R7-2-1309. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Dr. Webke, do I have a second?
Second.
Dr. Hightower seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes carry. So with that, thank you so much for letting me recite my numbers. It's like math day. Just have to add them up later. Okay, great. With this, we are going to our second call to the public. This is item 5. This is a time for the public to comment on items listed on the certification enforcement actions, a consent agenda, or the certification enforcement action general session items. Please note that the Arizona law prohibits the board from discussing or taking legal action on matters raised during the call to the public that are not on the agenda for the current meeting. Each speaker has 2 minutes to address the board during the 1-hour period allocated for this public comment period. Furthermore, speakers are not allowed to transfer their speaking time to another individual, and personal attacks are not appropriate. So with that, Deputy Director Duplanty, have we received any requests to speak?
President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, yes, we have. We have 2. First will be Reginald Walker, followed by Taylor Sakemsi. Reginald?
Hello. While I respectfully appreciate there is a process, it is a bit disturbing and concerning to me that the criminal matter at this issue here is over 30 years old. With that being said, I ask that in the making of your decision before you make your final determinations that you take notice that I have worked in the Arizona School District over 15 years as a football coach and mentor, where I'm sure criminal background checks are routinely done. So I started to look into this while I applied for a fingerprint card and ultimately was granted. And I got my Arizona Level 1 fingerprint clearance card was issued on March 31st, 2025 and set to expire March 31st, 2031. I even further inquired to see what it was triggering my criminal background check. All of a sudden, after over 30 years, to come to a dead end, to find that court had no record. So it's self-explanatory that I have been thoroughly vetted for over the past 15 years, compounded by the fact that there were no issues, incidents, arrests, or convictions, not only during those past 15 years of service, but for the past 30 years. But without wavering my objections, let's look closer at this 30 years notice of arrest. There is not about something I even vaguely recall that happened over 30 years ago. Like I said, I barely remember this myself. I was something about when I was first time young teen father, still a teenager at 19 years old, and the mother and I were not agreeing on the timing or the opportunity of me seeing my daughter. Obviously, because of the arrest that flagged during my background check, the police were called during our disagreement. Again, there was over 30 years ago regarding a man that has never had any criminal record since then. That literally 30 years of radio silence is that's not even courts of laws. Employment backgrounds go back 10 years in most cases, and they're going back 3 decades. So I just wanted to highlight those points myself to this board and respectfully ask you all to take considerations of the dates, and that this is one of the arrests from over 30 years ago when I was still a teenager, and that I have worked in the school district.
Thank you so much for your comments. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Next up is Taylor Sakemski.
Good morning. My name is Taylor Sasemski, attorney on behalf of Brooke Arispe, agenda item 7A1. I am here today to ask the board to approve Ms. Arispe's negotiated settlement agreement. I don't have any further comment at this time, but I'm available to answer any questions the board may have. Thank you for your time.
President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, that concludes this call to the public.
All right. Well, thank you so much. The consent agenda for enforcement actions will be taken in a single motion. Are there any items for from the consent agenda for enforcement actions that a board member would like to pull and discuss?
I would just like to hear the attorney describe the case of the 30-year-old situation.
Superintendent Horn, I did not personally handle that case, but I can contact someone the attorney from my office who handled that case to speak on the case if the board wishes to hear more and possibly table the case for decision at next month's meeting.
Yeah, usually I'm always supportive of what the PPAC does, but he said it's a 30-year-old. I'm sorry. Usually I support what the PPAC does, but it's just, it's a 30-year-old matter. I'd kind of like to know the other side. It's just my view.
President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, Garnett Burns, the Director of Enforcement Actions for the board, can speak and add a bit of information before the board makes a decision.
Good morning, President Haley, Superintendent Horn. This case is not a PPAC case. It's one of the automatic action cases under Rule R7-2-1307. So it's an automatic denial of his application, at which time he can request a hearing that will then go to PPAC, and he can demonstrate the age of the case and the circumstances of the case for approval or denial at that time. Okay.
Okay, great. Do we have any members who would like to pull an item? Otherwise, I would like to take it all in a block vote.
President Haley, I do not wish to pull an item, but I do have to recuse from 6A1.
6A1. Okay.
Gentlemen work for Washington Elementary School District in the past. So.
Great. Do I have anybody else? Dr. Clay, I see your hand raised.
Yes, President Haley, I'd like to accuse myself from item 6D1.
And that's D as in David?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right. Well, we'll then take 3 votes, if that's okay. The first one, I would like to, do I have a motion to approve items? Let me make sure I have this. 6A2 through 6A14, 6B1 and 6B2, 6C1, 6D2, and 6E1 and 6E2. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Great. Dr. Hightower, do I have a second?
Second.
Dr. Webke seconds. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing that there are none, those initial items were approved. My second motion is, this is the one that Dr. Hightower has recused herself from. Do I have a motion to approve item 6A1?
So moved.
Dr. Webke so moved. Do I have a second? Superintendent Horn makes a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing that there are none, motion carries. My third motion, this is, do I have a motion to approve item 6D1?
So moved.
Dr. Webke motions. Do I have a second?
Second.
Dr. Hightower makes a second motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. So moving on to item 7, this is the certification enforcement action general session. Are there any items from the consent agenda for enforcement actions that a board member would like to pull and discuss? Seeing that there are none, do I have a motion to approve items 7A1 through 7A8 and 7B1 through 7B10?
So moved.
Dr. Hightower makes a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Dr. Webke makes a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing that there are none, the motion carries. So with that, we're moving on to item 8. Executive Director Ross, any announcements? Otherwise, this was, I think, our fastest meeting this year.
President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, just the next board meeting is Monday, October 27th at 9 a.m. And yeah, this meeting finished in the morning. So that's kudos to everyone involved. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, I just want to say thank you so much. We covered a lot at our August meeting, and it was great to see some of the follow-up items to today's meeting. And I have no doubt we have our upcoming study sessions on A through F and a variety of other things. So many thanks to the state board staff, and thank you for answering all of our questions. And with that, it's 11:46 a.m. and the motion